Hello and welcome to this video. In this one we're going to be going over the initial access to a machine and the sort of things you want to be doing and the things you want to be looking at, and all that good stuff. So quick one, appreciate I sound a little weird, my mic's not the best, and also probably going to hear the fan, so I have to apologise for that. I was going to do the recordings, I heard them, so if it is a big distraction I'll try and get that sorted in the future, but for now I'm just making these for a little bit of a hobby. It's not going to bother me too much, but just back onto this. So personally, my process whenever I first get access to a machine, or just in general, a main concept that you want to get really unlocked down is enumeration. It's going to help you a lot with just anything. So, for example, if you're looking at what services a machine's got or looking for ways to exploit it, enumeration is going to be your friend. You want to absolutely dig into everything possible that you can. Likewise, with Priv, as soon as you're on a shell, first thing you want to find out is who am I, what privileges do we have. So, who am I? Obviously, it says there. It's just going to tell you who you are on the system. So if you're WW Data or if you're already a user, and then you'll see what sort of things you can do. ID, the group the user may belong to, so you may have access. You might be lucky and you may have some sort of already escalated privileges if you're in a specific group, things like that. Host name, if you're on a box and you have no way in whatsoever, you might look at the host name and it might contain something that you recognise, or some sort of process machine name, or something that you can sort of get something from and deep it more into. That might give you a little clue there. Especially on CTF boxing, not necessarily a real world scenario, but on CTF boxing and stuff, that's just little stuff like that can make a big difference. IF config, big one. You're obviously going to be enumerating your network configuration, so you see what subnet you're on, what other devices you've got on the machine, things like that. Sudo-L, an absolutely massive one. This obviously, if you've seen the rest of the course, this will be its own little section. Sudo is an absolutely major component. Sudo-L basically just lists what commands you can run, and if there are other users on the machine, you want to run that for them as well, and sort of see if you have to elevate privileges in a bit of a different way to maybe go from the user you are to another user to then escalate to root, things like that. That will help you do that on sudo. So if you can't run sudo commands, maybe another user can. So yeah, that'll be your way in. Path variable. So if there's some weird looking directories in there, there's some sort of funky attach you can do from that. Environment variables. I've seen it before on a Docker instance. The password was left inside the environment variables, so that just pops straight up, and that was an easy pwn right there. Looking at the shells you've got on the system, so if the system's running some other type of system shell, for example Tmux or Screen, maybe you've got privileges to run them, and obviously if you're running a shell as a higher privileged user, that could be an easy route. Uname-A, that'll check your sort of kernel version or print out the OS stuff, so that's good for kernel level exploits. Maybe there is a privilege escalation exploit for your Linux kernel version, things like that. LSCPU, this is another cool one. This is a bit of a more of a ninja one, but let's say you're looking at specific exploits, and it says, oh, maybe it only runs on a single thread or things like that, or something related to your architecture of your system. This is going to let you know whether or not you can run those types of exploits, or those sort of things. Or, for instance, on like Spectre or a meltdown situation, if you need an exploit to work on a machine that's running on a specific type of architecture, that'll help you check that and things like that. PSAUX shows the running services on a machine. It says there in the order they're issued, latest at the bottom. So the command that you've just sort of displayed, or things you're running, will be right at the bottom typically, and it'll show you other running services from the top, so who they're run by and what they are. So you might see some stuff on there that piques your interest, or maybe a way in there. So just going over some key things from that. Essentially checking who we are and seeing what we can do. Sudo is an absolutely massive one. That should be one of the first things you run. Another really good command is history. So okay, as more so on CTF type boxes, but or maybe in a in a real world environment as well. If you've just got on a box and you're as a user, you could check, see what commands that they've been running as well. Maybe they've left some bits in there. As I was saying, some of the really good useful commands are netstat. So netstat will be able to tell you what sort of services are running on the machine. So services that might not have been picked up before on your Nmap scans. So if you see on Nmap that there's a HTTP server running, maybe check on netstat, see if you've got some sort of local service that's only available to you. And then you can obviously curl it, see what's there. Actually, it's tunnel into the machine, and you can have a look and see what's going on there. And final one is just run your automated scripts. So while you're doing all of this, run your automated scripts either on a different shell, or if it's got some sort of other shell like maybe tmux or anything like that, try and do them at the same time. So maybe try sudo -l first, nothing comes up there. If nothing's coming up on one command, then get your scripts running, and maybe they'll give you some sort of insight. See what you can be doing. So as I mentioned in the last video about GTFO bins, while you are doing all your other sort of Priv commands such as sudo, things like that, GTFO bins is your friend. You want to be looking up and seeing if the binaries that are listed on your screen, for instance sudo or any other binaries that you spot on there, see if they're exploitable in some way, which is where GTFO bins comes in. And finally, just some easy wins that you want to check. So see if you've got access to Shadow. Do you have access to any sort of sensitive files? That might be machine dependent. So let's say there's a directory that's not typically there at the root of your system. You might not be able to access that, or you might be able to in some cases that maybe it's just a misconfiguration. So you might be able to get in there. Or can you look at other password files, for example database files, things like that, and can you run anything as root? So whether that be through sudo or through other means as well, if you've got access to other applications, things like that. Quick one with Shadow as well, obviously if something uninitiated, why that's so useful is the passwords were once stored in the etc password file. That's no longer the case now. Use the shadow file instead, just to sort of harden down the system. So typically, any user will be able to read the contents of the password file, just to see what users are on the system, permissions, groups, that sort of thing. And typically, with the group file as well, you'll be able to read that generally. But the shadow file is where the hashes for those passwords are stored. So if you do have access to that, that is one major win. The root password will be in there, and any other user passwords will be in there. So stick them straight to Hashcat or John the Ripper, and hopefully be able to get a hit off that.